Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Big Idea. The U.S. mission to ASEAN started this series, The Big Idea, because we know that Southeast Asia is filled with leaders. And these leaders inspire us, they have tips for us, and it is such a joy to speak to them. Today, we have one of these very special leaders, and his name is Asham Merchant. And oh, I forgot to introduce myself. Sorry, I'm your host. I'm Jason Seymour. I'm the spokesperson for the mission, but I'm not as important as our guest. Let's bring in our guest, Asham. And I see, Asham, that you have a very special mask on. You're a proud member of the Waisili Network. I see that. I hope our audience sees that. But please say hello to our audience.
Good afternoon, Jason. Hello, audience. Very nice to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to be on the show today.
Oh, my pleasure. And for those of you who don't know, Waisili is the Young Southeast Asian Leadership Initiative. We have a very robust network of members, and I do hope if you're not already a member, you will consider joining, and we'll have the information in the description below. So, Asham, you are from Thailand, but you are speaking to us today from Goa, India. What's the weather like in Goa today?
It's very nice. We had a thunderstorm yesterday out of the blue, so it has cooled down a bit from the hot summer. And yeah, it's a very nice time to be in Goa at this point.
I'm in Indonesia right now, and I know that those thunderstorms are great. They release some of the pressure in the air. So I know that our audience is more, when they hear the word India, they're not thinking of the weather, they're thinking about COVID. So that's not really what we're here to talk about today, but I do want to pause for a moment and just ask you, how are you doing? How are your friends and contacts doing in Goa? What's the situation with COVID right now?
I think I'm very lucky to be in a state which is relatively COVID-free. And across India, there are pockets where you'll find COVID spreading a lot. But most of India on the whole, from what I've heard from my peers, from my colleagues, things are sort of normal in a way. And the government is working on a war footing to address and provide whatever supplies are required. A lot of support has come from ASEAN. Just yesterday, over 16 tankers of oxygen were airlifted from Bangkok into India. So we do see a lot of excellent interagency cooperation at this time. And the government of India is doing an excellent job in ensuring social distancing norms are being implemented, in masks being available, and doing what's required for the interest of public health and safety. So it's good to see that things are under control, unlike some of the media reporting that's happening out there, which is a lot of hype.
Yeah, I do want to comment that I'm very happy that my country, the United States, is offering assistance to India. I know a number of other countries are reaching out to the government to provide resources or assistance as the Indian government decides makes sense. I do want to pause a moment on what you said about media hype. It is interesting when I watch certain networks, people might come with the impression that COVID is in every pocket and every family and every individual is struggling with health crises. And that is inaccurate, but at the same time, journalists do want to cover the fact that there has been an upsurge in India. So what do you think the appropriate balance should be for public speakers and public health specialists and journalists? How do we address a pandemic in this way without overdoing it?
I strongly feel that there need to be certain ethics instilled when conversing with the public, because you do not want to create a situation of panic or incorrect reporting. And it's very important for those who have access to these outlets, such as the media or journalism, to really give a pragmatic, measured response. Yes, you do want people to understand the urgency of the situation, but that does not give a free ticket to exaggerate or hype anything up. So responsible media is something we are in dire need at this time. And just moving outside the COVID framework, even when it comes to excellent public policies that are devised by different parties from different political spectrums, at the end of the day, we find some of these public policies not being implemented only because the media have given it a different swing. When in reality, if those policies were implemented, our society would have progressed far ahead than where we are today. So I do think that media reporting is important, but being factual, being accurate, using evidence are some of the key foundational pillars required in every report that goes out to public.
There's another piece to what you're saying, which was so accurate, and that is that whether an individual is a journalist and has this special opportunity to speak to the public, or a leader of some kind, you might be a CEO or a business owner, you might be a political figure, you might be a youth leader, you get this special platform, and you have to think very, very carefully about how you're going to use that platform and what messages you're going to convey. And the words you choose, the tone you pick, all of those things are so important. Now, you have a lot of leadership experience. And just to build on what you were saying, because I don't want us to frame this conversation just for journalists. When you're talking to a young leader or another leader, what's a tip that you share about being accurate and using that platform in an ethical way? What do you tell them?
I would tell them to really cross-check and verify your facts. So throughout my career, I have been, I'm a very passionate administrator. I enjoy the field of administration. I enjoy the field of good governance. I enjoy the field of public policy. And in administration, one skill that has held me in good stead till today is always going down and doing a fact check and verifying the information from multiple sources before coming to an informed decision. Because we have to accept that when you're a leader, you are in a position to influence other people. At the same time, how do you convey the right message or take the right decision when you are in an environment which is basically asymmetrical information? And that makes you pause for a second and really look at the facts, simplify the facts. If you're convinced that this is the situation at hand, then you frame a message that is easy to understand. You want to convey the point across that ethics are very important for something to be sustainable. You want to convey a point across that because you have people who are going to get influenced by what you say, the words you choose have to be chosen very carefully. Because once a word is said, there's no miracle on the planet that can bring that word back. It's as simple as that. So it's all about fact checking and using evidence. And right now we see big data, which is a very big component of all our careers that's come into the fore. And using big data to make decisions, which we hope are more accurate than it would have been. So it's all about how accurate can you get to the point and then take a call. Yes, it's time to give the information and give it. Rather than give a message based on assumptions, I would prefer going down an evidence approach to conveying a message.
Every project leader has a story where we thought everything was put together and we thought we knew what was going to happen and it didn't go right because we either didn't spend enough time with the research or the fact checking. So we all have a story. So amen to what you were saying. And of course, and the other point that I just want to build on what you were saying, there was a time maybe 30, 40 years ago where you would have a meeting or you would give remarks and what you said would stay in that room. But now everyone has a cell phone, or a smartphone, I should say. Everyone has a smartphone. You can be recorded or in any moment, even if it's not video, they'll record your audio. So you have to be so careful. So you are absolutely right. So great tips. And I'm wondering, so you serve as a mentor for others. Who has served as a mentor for you? Do you have any stories of great role models? Someone who has inspired you?
I do. And the first one is a person whom probably no one has even heard of. His name was Marcus Aurelius Caesar. and he wrote a book called Meditations. It is such an amazing book because at the time of him writing the book, he was one of the greatest Roman generals that ever existed. And when he wrote this book, he documented his personal thoughts without the intent of publishing it for an audience. So you find raw leadership content in there. You find these snippets of wisdom all across the book on every page that really act as a lighthouse during decision making. That is one book and one role model from the past that has continued to play and influence my decisions today. And the other one is a book on how do you use 24 hours in a day well. And it's a very nice book that was written somewhere in the 1800s. And there was this American businessman who would travel in a bus to work every day. And during his travels, he would write this book and how he used to maximize his time. And from being effective at around, say, 6 hours a day, he was able to become effective across 20 hours a day. And that is something which we rarely think about. We always think money is a constraint or resource is a constraint. But the reality is the only constraint is time, because no matter how much money you have, you cannot buy back the time that you have spent. So understanding a concept called time budgets and utilizing your time effectively, that is a very, very powerful instrument that can guide your life. These are two books with role models that have influenced me. In this era, I've taken a lot of inspiration from a businessman called Mr. Ratan Tata, who runs the Tata companies. Having operated in some of the most difficult countries in the world, he has been able to always steer his company on a strong footing of ethics and excellent corporate governance principles. And that is something that I really admire. And there's also the company CP in Thailand, which is led by Mr. Dhanen Sheryawonon, who also I admire because he was able to convert a crisis of food scarcity into an opportunity of food security. And that is why across ASEAN today, a lot of food security that we have compared to what was 20, 30 years ago can be attributed to the success of his company. So there are companies in Indonesia too, which have inspired me. There's this largest noodle maker whose name just slips out of my mind right now. And they have been able to also address food security in Indonesia. So you have these few amazing business leaders. And from a political leader perspective, I would definitely say President Barack Obama, especially at the time when I went for my fellowship there, had a very profound impact because he believed that youth could do something. And at that time, it was always youth have a lot to learn, but he's like, youth can do. And there's also Mr. John Kerry, the really tall senator, I think, or politician, who really cared about oceans and plastic waste in oceans. So I have had a lot of role models who I look up to. At the same time, I would like to also say that we sometimes feel the need to emulate these role models or become these role models. But that's not the real essence here, because everyone is the best version of themselves. So by learning what these role models do and learning from the best of what they have to offer, if we are able to adapt it into our lives, then we somehow are able to bring out the best in ourselves. So that is something that I would strongly suggest and advise all the audience here is have your role models, have as many of them as you would like. At the same time, it's important to learn from the best and try and become the best version of you.
I love that. I love that. Because role models are only important for us if we actually do something with the insights that we're receiving. We have to take it, we have to internalize, we have to change something about ourselves and strive to do better. And I know you strive to be the best leader you can be and have an impact with your business. And you're very focused on renewable energy and using plastics for good. So I'd love for you to tell our audience a little bit more about your business and what you're doing to make the world a better place.
Sure. It's been a journey that has started in 2009 when I first visited the landfill. Not out of choice, definitely, but I was taken to a landfill to see it. And I was shocked to see the mountain of plastic waste lying there. And just to give you a simple sample, any packaging or anything you buy from the supermarket comes wrapped in plastic, just like this, or like this. Oops, sorry. Yeah, there we go. So you'll find that plastics come in every form and every shape around whatever we buy, whatever we see. In supermarkets, all your food, in your lunch breaks, in your evening tea breaks, there's a tremendous amount of plastic waste being generated. And we take that, we apply a systems approach and a technological approach to make this, which is sulfur-free clean diesel, which can power your vehicles and which can be value added into other specialty chemicals. It has been a very, very fruitful journey to say, because there's been a lot of learning in the process. At the same time, the pride that I take is with my team. Without my team, I would not be where I am today. And without this project and without these initiatives that I've undertaken, I would have not had the opportunities to experience which I have had till today. And one difference in what my company does is that we don't sell our machines. We actually go and design them, build them, and operate them for the entire project life, because our interest is in actually converting the plastic waste into a useful product, as opposed to just being a consultant. We like to be in the action, in the middle of all the action. And we feel that a business is only a business when you are able to create jobs, give employment, and really address the problem that we have identified and started to solve. So converting mixed waste plastics, which are post-consumer and non-recyclable, into clean energy is one of the most sophisticated and effective methods of tackling the plastic menace that surrounds all our countries today. And in ASEAN, 5 of our countries rank in the top 10 plastic polluters in the world. Yes, it includes my country. It also includes the country you're in right now, Jason. And it includes many other countries in ASEAN, only because, yes, we are by the sea, we are by the ocean. Anything we throw on our land ends up out there in the great garbage patch.
And I'm sure that our former President Barack Obama and our special envoy Kerry would be very proud of the work that you're doing, because they and our current President Biden are very passionate about climate change and the environment and all these issues. So when you can make a profit and run a business and do something for the world and the environment, that is a beautiful thing. So I want to take a pause and take a step back, because we have a great question from our audience about leadership. And Casper is from Koh Samui. I don't know if I said that right. You could help me. But that's a location in Thailand. And he says, sometimes when you're a leader, you are leading your group and you have 2 alphas. What he means by that are 2 very assertive, 2 very aggressive personalities, and they aren't getting along. In English, we say they're butting heads. But assuming that these are both very good members of your team and you want to keep them and you want them to work well together, what is some advice you would give to leaders trying to get the most out of these temperamental individuals?
Sure. The first point is, if you are one of those alphas, then the perspective that you would have to take is either take a step back, put yourself in the other person's shoes and see where is he coming from. A lot of time when we are leading a project, we tend to get so absorbed in it because we want to get the best out of it. We may lose perspective of other strategic objectives that were there at the onset of the project. So sometimes a bit of conflict is really good. It helps you reorient yourselves. It helps you reprioritize what's required in order to deliver what you started out on. On the other hand, if you're one of the team members who have to decide which side or which alpha to choose and be with, the way it works is a team works best when the cause or when the idea or when the objective is clear to all. If you do not understand, or if the team does not coalesce around this idea, the project will get stuck. Now, when 2 alphas compete, there's always going to be the need to compete. It's just in the nature. You cannot change certain human traits and human nature. But what you can do is take a stand. And you take a stand by bringing both of them to the table, give them an hour, let them speak straight and frank to each other. There might be a bit of steam in the room, but that's fine. But what you're trying to achieve is, your end goal is, what are the points that are causing conflict? If you're able to identify the points that are causing conflict, then you're able to start discussing what solution to arrive at. And that is a very, very progressive step in any project or in any team. So get both of them in the same room and see where the issues are. Maybe as a team, you know what the issues are already. You can raise the issue saying that as a team, we find these 3 points very difficult to work with. Please give clarity. And these two discuss, and they eventually have to come to some kind of conclusion. And bring that kind of closure in a very diplomatic, friendly way, because there is no project that can happen without conflict. It's just going to be there because we are humans, we have different opinions, different perspectives. That's just the way things are. But what we can do is we can compromise, we can negotiate, and everything is possible and anything is negotiable. So keep that in mind, and in a very diplomatic way, identify the points and then solve the points.
Lots of good advice there. And certainly what you were talking about before leads into what you just said, and that is verifying the facts. So you need to listen. You need to talk to these individuals, find out, try to figure out where the conflict is and see if it can be resolved. And I would just add one other tip, if I may, that if you are a leader and you have team members and they're really assertive and they really want to promote themselves, delegate, give them an opportunity. Give one an opportunity to be a project lead, and then give the other person an opportunity to lead a project. You know, tap into that energy. As you were saying, instead of looking at it as a negative, try to figure out how can you make it into a positive. So lots of great advice. So, and some of the tips and insights that you've gained them because you participated in a wonderful US government program, which is called the American Council of Young Political Leaders. Please tell our audience what this program is and a little bit about what you did when you participated in this program.
Sure. The ACYPL Spring Fellowship Program, which I went on, was the single most life-changing experience for me. It is a program that I still look back to and cherish memories fondly, and I still apply the learnings that I gained there till today. And I'm very confident that those learnings will continue into the future. It was a program where, a bit of background before I applied to this program. I just finished my degree, and it was a time where there was a bit of personal conflict on which direction to choose in my career. I've always been passionate about public policy, but on one hand, I had an engineering degree, and I was not able to see how these two could be bridged together. That was where the whole issue was, you could say, as to how do I use my engineering degree and get into the field of public policy, because it's like apples and oranges, literally. And the ACYPL Fellowship was an opportunity to go and learn public policy, learn about good governance, and I applied for it with all the intent that, okay, if I have to start over all again, let's do it. What surprised me was day one when I reached Washington, DC, and I met a few of my colleagues. They were from equally diverse backgrounds, such as there was a journalist amongst us, there was an activist amongst us, there was an NGO amongst us, there was a politician amongst us, there was a civil servant amongst us, there was another engineer amongst us. So I was surprised that, okay, we're all here to do public policy, but all our backgrounds are so diverse. The first week was really intense. It was literally the longest week of my life in terms of the number of meetings that we had scheduled, the amount of learning that we had, but it was really, really eye-opening and was so engaging and so insightful as to public policy is essentially the framework that governs all our lives. When you start a business, how easy or how difficult it is decided by public policy. When you want a career change, how easy or difficult it is decided by public policy. It is all around us, yet we never really see it. And in a career in public policy, you're able to create documents and frameworks that influence not just your life or your community's life. You can actually contribute to global challenges and tackle national challenges and bring an overall empowerment to the people you serve. So for the first week, it was in DC. It was an intense week. A lot of excellent leaders we interacted with, ranging from think tanks to congressmen to senators from both sides of the political spectrum. And then we went to Seattle, When we went to Seattle, we were split into different groups. And I was very fortunate to have 2 colleagues from Malaysia and 1 from Thailand. And the 4 of us were really the most diverse group that you could imagine. It's like having a Democrat, Republican, and someone else in the same room with from 4 different political points of view. But what brought us together was the desire to serve. Hello? Hello?
Awesome. Jason will be back very soon.
Sure.
I'll wait you may continue. Yeah.
All right.
You can continue what you say.
So the common need, not the common need, sorry, the common objective that brought us together that we were focused on was how do we improve the quality of life of general public? How do we design policies that make education accessible to all? How do we create economic equality and ensure that everybody is gainfully and meaningfully employed? So these were questions that really brought us together, regardless of what our different views and opinions were. And in those 4 weeks, what happened was we had our 4 individual programs designed. We were able to bring it into a single program and cross-attend each other's meetings. And that was the most amazing experience to be in meetings which my friends had arranged, because those were topics that I would never have even thought of or touched on before. So from being in a framework like a box, it just became a 360-degree view of what's happening out there and what else is out there. And at the end of 4 weeks, we came back to DC, we shared our learnings, and we became friends. And that friendship has lasted till today. And I think it is important to really highlight that if you want to create a significant change in your society, there's only so much you can do as one person. And it's very important to expand your network, to have friends who share a certain like-mindedness and who care about the issues together. So climate change was a really strong issue that brought us together, coming from countries that had oceans around us. Rising sea levels pose a significant threat to our future security. And also the fact that plastic was mismanaged in all our countries really made us feel, let us work together, let us unite, let us make something happen. And it has been that approach, I think, that it has been that experience to be in that diverse environment, to be able to freely debate, deliberate, exchange, and collaborate, that has taken my career to such a level today. So yes, the fellowship was a life-changing experience because it gave me a platform to not just learn more about myself, but to learn from others and to really connect, communicate, and collaborate.
I am so pleased that you had such a good experience on that US government program. One of the things that the US government really cares about, and of course the mission to ASEAN, is that people such as yourself are able to find peers, are able to find role models, are able to find mentors, because so much in life is about who we surround ourselves with and who we are inspired by, who we learn from, because no one's born being a leader. It's a constant development with family, friends, new mentors, colleagues, great bosses, great subordinates. It's just constant learning and growing. So it's wonderful that you had such a good time.
If I may add one more point. When I went on the ACYPL program, and when I came out, I learned that the current Prime Minister of India was also a former ACYPL alumni. When I was in Phuket in 2019 for this flagship Wisely Summit, which brought young people from 11 countries, before ASEAN was 10, and now we have 11 because even Timor-Leste is part of the group. There was a high-level chief guest who was also former ACYPL alumni. And when you are ACYPL alumni, it just connects because they keep the program so intense. You just enjoy it, and it becomes a bridge to really bring people together. And that's why I recommend all the young people out there listening, have a look at YCD, because YCD has so much to offer for everyone out there. There are 6-week fellowship programs, there are 2-week regional exchange programs, there are 3-day programs, there are so many programs that you'll be amazed that there's so much opportunity out there. All it requires is for you to go out there, put your name forward, and enjoy the ride.
Thanks. Thanks so much for the plug. I wholeheartedly agree. Now, when you were in the United States and now you're in India, you're a diplomat, if you will, an unofficial diplomat for Thailand, for Southeast Asia, for the ASEAN community. What do you tell Americans and Indians about all of that and your identity and who you are and where you come from? What do you tell them?
I tell them that we all are here for a common cause. If you look at our history of our countries, there has been a strong democratic framework on which our countries have been built. There's always been consensus, consultation, and innovation in our thinking. And that is our greatest strength. America, India, Thailand, and ASEAN, we are very, very innovative countries. And we have actually mastered, to a certain extent, the technique of accelerated commercialization. In a world that is rapidly changing as we see it today, where artificial intelligence is replacing a lot of what we used to do, where big data is relied upon more than human instinct at times, our countries that have a strong tradition of innovation and entrepreneurship and women empowerment are very lucky. And it becomes our responsibility as a generation to not just safeguard that, but advance that further. So that would be my perspective, saying that our countries have a lot of things in common, regardless of the differences that we have, which could be cultural, which could be language. But our main aim has always been, how do we make our societies or communities experience greater prosperity, greater quality of life, and really be the pioneers of a more equitable future and equitable society that's in front of us.
Well, if you're a business and the world of renewable energy doesn't work out, ASEAN or Thailand should hire you as a diplomat, because that was fantastic. That was so well said. Now, just for fun, I've been in Thailand, but it's been quite some time. So if I get to visit Thailand sometime in 2022 and you're there, what is a place that you would want to take me to? Where should I visit in Thailand?
The first place would be, I would invite you for dinner to my house, because my fiance makes excellent food.
Fantastic.
So you would be a guest. You would be a guest in my house. And the first place I would take you to is, there's a Chang Erawan Museum. It's a very interesting museum because it's located about half an hour from the capital. And the Chang Erawan Museum is this massive elephant with 3 heads, which was modeled around a concept of world peace. And what I like about that museum is you have 3 tiers which represent, you could say, Hindu Buddhist ideology of hell, earth, and heaven, as to just an artistic perspective on the museum itself. But when you go inside this elephant, this massive structure, you will find all the world religions carved over there. And the idea was there will always be differences among different human communities, different countries, but we can all coexist and live together peacefully and happily and enjoy this gift of life that we have. So that would be the first place I would take you to, because there's a beautiful museum with a lot of history to it, and there's a very beautiful garden out there. So it's a very nice place to just go think and experience the philosophical side of life. And after the Chang Erawan Museum, it would be a small province in the north called Chiang Rai, which is also at the banks of the Mekong River and borders Laos and Myanmar. And I think it's important because everyone who goes to Thailand, the first thought that comes to their mind is always Phuket or some other beach resort like Krabi, etc. But there is a lot of cultural wealth and business enterprise in northern Thailand, especially Chiang Rai, Chiang Mai, because there's a very rich agricultural history, there's a very rich herbal history, and it's another experience of sorts in the mountains with the waterfalls and some excellent cuisine to try out. So definitely I would recommend these two.
Well, thank you for those recommendations. And I definitely will take you up on that offer to go to that museum someday, because what you were describing is what I believe in, that every culture, every religion, every country has something special, something we should appreciate. And the more we learn about each other, the more we get along, we find beauty in each other's backgrounds. That is what makes the world such a fascinating and lovely place. So if you were to be able to return to the United States, what is a city that you would like to visit?
Definitely Texas.
Texas, all right.
I'm a very, very big fan of barbecues, and Texas is the king of barbecues. So definitely, and also my host in Seattle happened to be from Texas. So I would definitely go to Texas first, visit my host and say hi to their family, followed by a barbecue, and then wherever after that.
That's great. I have been to Texas. I will try to convince you to go to where I grew up, which is Northern California. So hopefully I'll be able to convince you to get there someday. So as I warned you before the show, the time just flew by. You have so many interesting things to say. There's so much more we could get to. But because we're coming to the end of the interview, is there any final thought you'd like to share with the audience? You're welcome to say a goodbye in Thai if you want. This is your moment to share one more message with our audience.
I would like everyone listening to this program to ask themselves a question sometimes. This question, in fact, was something I came across just a few months ago, which had a profound impact. I was asked to think over a question: where do I see my company in the next 20 years? And where do I see my company in the next 50 years? For someone who works on a very, very short time frame, it made me think on a different tangent altogether. And it had a direct impact on my company strategy, on my company vision, on my company framework, on decision making, because we then realized that from a company, we want to become an institution that not only pioneers and solves the current waste challenges, but create an environment that prevents the waste management challenges that we have today. We want to implement technology, not just to solve the current plastic waste crisis by converting it to oil. We also want to expand and start producing hydrogen to cater to the next energy revolution that's on the horizon. And it's very important because there are so many industries out there, there's so many careers out there, and there's so many different ways of how to get things done. Sometimes when you ask a question and try and visualize 20 years down the road, it becomes a guiding star of sorts to aspire towards. You'll be surprised when I was 20 and I was asked to think over the same question: where do I see myself in 10 years? My response back there, which I had scribbled on a little piece of paper and put in my pocket, was I wanted to meet world leaders and discuss public policy. That was one line. And that one line took me to literally meet the president of the United States in the Wisely Spring Fellowship. It took me on an excellent program to Prague, where I met the defense minister and other ministers. It took me on a program to Indonesia, where I met leading constitutional experts and leading public policy makers and governors over there to understand their Panchasila ideology. It took me to so many countries across the globe. and in the career that I wanted to be in. So that one sentence on a piece of paper at the age of 20 made me achieve whatever I had aspired to by 30. And at 30, again, I made the same, I challenged myself again with a focus this time on the company, because now I'm also responsible for all the lives of people who I employ directly and indirectly. I'm responsible for their families, for their children. So it really is something that I encourage, regardless of how young or old you are, to give it a thought. And the other thing I would say is, you may want to achieve a certain goal at a certain time. It may or may not happen. It's okay either ways. Especially in COVID, nobody knew that we would be locked up in our houses for a year, right? And that was totally unexpected, but it happened. So to all the people out there who may have had their plans disrupted because of COVID or other reasons out of your control, it's absolutely okay, as long as you keep trying and keep working towards whatever it is that you want to achieve. So in short, life is a journey. There is a destination which we set for ourselves. At the same time, it is important to be consistent. It's important to persevere. It's important to have that clarity as you take every step forward. Because at the end of the day, we have 30 good years to achieve our goals. 30 good years is approximately 10,000 days. You can literally count it. And rather than seeing it as a pressure test, it is a journey of 10,000 days to achieve what it is you want to achieve. And every day, as long as you take the risk and that decision one day, one step at a time, every right decision gets you one step closer. Every wrong decision is another step closer, just that you have learned something. It's either you become stronger or you become wiser or you become closer, right? So stay focused. It is okay to have an exposure to everything around you. It is important to have it, in fact, but you must be very focused and learn to prioritize. And if I can just borrow 2 more minutes, Jason, it just struck me. I was an award winner for the Alumni Engagement Innovation Fund, which is for US government alumni. And I organized a project called Mekong River Project. And at that time, there was an earthquake that hit Myanmar. And I got really stressed out for my project at that time. But everything went smoothly, everything went well. What I realized by doing that project was a very important takeaway that continues to hold me in good stead. Know your priorities. Anything you do will always have multiple things to look at to ensure it happens. If you know your priorities and prioritize correctly, everything happens more effectively and easily. So yes, so in short, stay focused, be clear on your priorities, and take that risk, dive into programs that you're not sure about, because it will open new doors of opportunity. And always keep learning. Yes. Quite a few messages there. Sorry, just it was a very nice question with a bit more. Yeah.
A lot of good messages, and definitely one thing I come out of that is if you want to be successful in life, you have to have a goal. You have to come up with an idea, a passion, perhaps a big idea, and then you can start finding mentors and people to help you. And U.S. embassies, the U.S. mission to ASEAN definitely want to help everyone in our audience to make that idea into a reality. So please reach out. We have lots of programs, lots of mentors, lots of ideas for you. So thank you so much, Hashim. We really, really appreciated that you were here with us today. You had so many good ideas and you inspired me, and I enjoyed the conversation thoroughly. And just one last message to the audience. Always have a backup plan. You might have noticed I went dark for a moment. I lost my Golden Gate Bridge. My device completely went under. Fortunately, I had an alternative device. So another tip for our audience, always have a backup plan, because best laid plans don't always work out, and you need that backup. So thank you so much to our audience for joining us for another episode of The Big Idea. We'll say goodbye now, and until the next time, bye-bye.
Thank you, Jason.